Dental Fuel, the podcast that focuses on what no one else is talking about: mistakes. The dental world is full of before and afters, and no one is talking about the middle. Dental Fuel brings you the unspoken in between. Welcome back to another episode of Dental Fuel. Dental Fuel is brought to you by 90 Day Jumpstart, a program to help you increase production and break free from financial stress. This week, we have double the fun with Karen Tindall and Laura Schwindt, co-founders of the Mint Door. We have an opportunity to discuss their journeys from clinical dentistry to life coaching. This conversation dives deep into the challenges faced by dental professionals, especially the prevalence of burnout in dentistry. We talk about the joys of clinical experiences and the need of balancing professional lives and personal lives. Let's listen in. Laura Schwindt and Karen Tindall, welcome to Dental Fuel. How are you all doing today?
Very well. Thanks so much for having us. We're excited to be here.
Yeah, this is going to be an exciting conversation. We're really looking forward to it.
Well, I'm very excited to speak with both of you all and hear a little bit about your story and share with our listeners some mistakes that maybe you all have made along the way in your career. But before we get into the nitty gritty, I would love to hear a little bit about both of y'all's background. And Karen, why don't you start us off with that?
Yeah, well, thank you very much for that. So you can tell from my accent, I'm not originally from the United States. I qualified as a dentist in England back in the year 2000. I was in family dentistry for a short period, probably of about almost 2 years, when I realized that wasn't for me. And I then made a move to orthodontics, where I found my home, and I loved doing what I was doing. However, at the end of 2015, I finished work as an orthodontist and moved to the United States. So that's where my clinical career came to a close. And from there, I had a period of being a stay-at-home mum, which was a privilege because I had never had that opportunity before, and then retrained as a professional life coach and found my way back into dentistry, but in a different way.
Oh, well, we'll dive into that a little bit more. But Laura, how about yourself?
Thanks. So my story is similar to Karen's, just rearrange some of the details, but practiced dentistry for 21 years. I was an associate dentist for many, many years in different practices because my husband was training all over the States. So we kind of moved around a little bit. But finally opened my own dental practice, and about halfway through that period, went into a very dark, deep burnout. At which point I hired a life coach, and I credit her with saving my life. And so working with her for just about a year, at the end, I was just like, gosh, I really wish I could give this gift to other women in dentistry. Because I know if I'm going through something like this, there's got to be other people that are. And she said, well, why can't you? And that was the seed that was planted. And so, similar to Karen, we had a family event, medical event that went through our family, and we decided to kind of change the way we were living. So we moved across the country, sold my practice. We sold everything except one car, kept our kids, so that was good. and and that's when I decided to pursue becoming a professional life coach. And so similar story, just a few different details. But then a mutual friend of ours, Ann Duffy, the leader of Do, introduced us, and Karen and I hit it off right away, became fast friends, and that's sort of how the Mint Door was born.
Wow, I love that. And a powerful story, a powerful message there. Burnout is just so prevalent in our profession. And, that's just another avenue, and another beautiful thing about our profession is that we have different avenues that we can, share our expertise and our just our history and our story of practicing with patients and being in the profession, and maybe pivoting to a different way and still helping others, and in what you all are doing, probably helping a lot of dentists across the nation.
Yeah.
But I would love to know more about how you all met. I know that you hinted to it, but tell me more about the details and how things came together for the Mint Door.
Awesome. Karen, you go ahead. I just finished.
Okay. So in 2021, Laura and I met for the first time in real life because we met before the pandemic. Then all of that came in and put a stop to everybody traveling everywhere. And we lived at that point on completely opposite sides of the country. And so we got together at Vanessa Emerson's Jumpstart meeting, as it used to be called. And from there, we just kept in contact, and we realized we both had a passion for the well-being of people in dentistry. And we just agreed to follow it. Our rule is always best friends first, business second. So we followed our passions, and it was through authentic conversation that we had over dinner with another dentist one evening that we realized that there was something that we could do to support people and teams in dentistry to feel better about how they're living, what they're doing, and how they feel when they get home in the evening, because we, both of us, really recognize that we're whole people. We're not just the professional title that we have, even though that professional identity is really important to us. I think sometimes it overshadows the who we are away from that professional title. So Laura and I then in August 2021 on a walk, because as we like to say, walks just provide the opportunity for great ideas, great conversation. We came up with the idea of the Mint Door. So that was the start of the Mint Door. So we're going to be 3 years old this summer.
Wow. That's wonderful. Laura, did you have anything to add to that story?
No, just that I think that, like Karen said, on that walk, we just realized that there is a way that we can transform people's lives and support them in this profession that is very giving, nurturing. We nurture so much, and we wanted to elevate the fact that it's time that we nurture ourselves as well.
Very well said. Well, here at Dental Fuel, we are dedicated to learning from each other's mistakes. And I'm going to throw it back a little bit to y'all's time in the clinical days, but I think that there will be some relevance as well, too, along the way. And it doesn't just have to be clinical, but I would love to know about some of the mistakes that you all have made in your life and what you've learned from them. And together we will learn from them. But to start us off, I would love to know if you all can remember a clinical mistake that you remember making and what that meant for you, how you pivoted from that, how you grew from that, and what you learned. But Karen, why don't you start with us with that clinical mistake?
Okay. Well, this is such a great question, because I think when I was practicing clinically, I was so scared of making mistakes. It seemed like the last thing in the world I wanted to do. So when I was thinking about this question, I was like, oh, what's a mistake that I made? And it's a difficult one to answer, but the thing that I came up with, and it's related to clinical work, although not necessarily the actual clinical, practical side of work, is saying yes to treating the children of friends. That, for me, being an orthodontist, I took up some easy peasy, and they're not the ones that I would say were mistakes. But hiding in that bunch, there's going to be somebody, a child, who is a bit of a nightmare to treat. Refuse treatment, cries in the chair, creates a scene, doesn't want to sit down, doesn't want to open the mouth. And what it became for me is that whenever I saw this particular child's name on my list for the day, oh, my heart would sink. And I'm like, oh my gosh, why did I say yes to this? And it became a really heavy thing to be seeing this particular patient, because there's a blurred line, isn't there, between being somebody's friend, being somebody's clinician, and how far the boundaries are different. So I think that was a lesson, probably backed up by mistakes that I've made in life, but I'll give you another one that I made. One of my patients' mums was an interior designer. And I love chatting with my patients and their parents. Like that for me was the highlight of my, that's why I did what I did,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
it's about the people really. Teeth, we'll take it or leave it. People, yes, please.
Yes.
And we'd had lovely conversations. And being an orthodontist, you get to see these parents really frequently over a really short period of time. And maybe you think, oh, I've made a friend here. So I invited the interior designer over to, we were building our dream house.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, oh, she'll be able to give me some good pointers. And I basically stepped into the biggest sales pitch when she arrived at my house. She was offering for me to swap from the contractor that I was using to her contract. I'm like, I'm midway through this job. I
Mm-hmm.
can't. It was so awkward. And yet again, that was an example of a boundary blurring between Karen the professional and Karen the friend away from work, and the two of them not gelling. So I learned from that, be very careful how you mix friends, family, and dentistry.
Great pearls there. I think that you said it just right. Identifying your boundaries
Mhm.
clinically, outside of clinic, non-clinically as well too. I think that those are two things that, as people, dentists or not, it's really important to identify, and being firm with those, I think, is really good. But man, good pearls there, and definitely some big life lessons there as well.
Yeah, important. And I've used that going on from that point, that it has made a difference. And I think I love to look at mistakes as a way of moving forwards. It's
Yes, yeah,
experience.
right. We use the word mistakes lightly,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it is a nice way for us to coin it for the podcast. But
yeah,
yes, just kind of stepping stones and things that we learn along the way.
yeah.
What about you, Laura?
Yeah, these are great questions, and I love the kind of the reframe of mistake as a learning. But I think that that's the key too, and I would like to applaud you guys for bringing this out, because we learn from each other's mistakes, and so this can be very valuable. And what Karen and I really love is authentic conversations where we do get a little deeper than the surface. So even though it's sometimes very hard to talk about your mistakes, one of mine was a gentleman came in for a restoration on the upper right side. And, I proceeded to get him numb, and he did not get numb. I started on the tooth and he wasn't numb, so we gave him more anesthetic. At which point I got a message from the front saying, your next patient canceled, so you have a little extra time. Which to me, I was like, oh, that's nice, because he's having a challenging time getting numb. And so I thought maybe it was just going to take him a little while to get numb. So I said, you have a restoration on the upper left. We could get that numb and then give that a few minutes, and then maybe the one on the right will be ready. Great. He thought that was a fantastic idea. And I said, and a little bit of time freed up so we could do 2 restorations instead of 1. Just trying to be productive with my time, right? Anyway, long story short, he ended up not getting numb on either tooth. So instead of 1 restoration that was incomplete that I had to temporize, I now had 2 restorations that were incomplete and I needed to temporize. I was behind schedule at that point, and I had probably lost a little of his confidence in the meantime, because he felt, why can't you get me numb? I ended up using what I felt was the maximum amount of anesthetic. I didn't want to give him any more. So yeah, that taught me to not focus solely on production. I could have instead had a conversation with him and just given the anesthetic a little more time, kind of had a nice, calm experience. Taught me that multitasking isn't always a great thing. And yeah, so I think I learned from that to, stick with the plan. And there are times when you need to pivot for sure. But really kind of weigh that and rub it up against what's the real outcome I want from this procedure.
Right. As dentists, we always want to try and do so many things. I think that's just kind of how our brains are wired, just to, be productive and do the best for our patients. But that's another good lesson there. And it's just another message on how challenging dentistry can be sometimes, and what a frustrating situation, both for you and for the patient.
Yeah, it was one of those where you kind of felt like you go back into your office, you're like, I am a failure.
Yes,
I didn't
we've
get
all been
anything
there.
done.
Yes, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's dentistry in a nutshell some days. It's just
Mhm.
really it's challenging. Dentistry's hard.
It
Dentistry's
is.
hard. Thanks for tuning in to our first episode with the ladies at the Mint Door. You can find them on Instagram at the Mint Door Club. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at IgniteTDS and at Dental Fuel. If you're looking to grow your practice and need some help along the way, be sure to check out 90 Day Jumpstart. You can start for free by contacting Dr. David Rice. Check out the link to his Calendly in the show notes.